Holy shit, guys, it's finally happening. After months and months of promising it, and yes, I've heard you in the comments. Your favorite tanker, Tony, is coming back at you with the second half of the Valkyria Chronicles video based on the Imperial side. Now, hopefully this time around, we are going to mud stomp those plucky little teenagers with some fine Imperial hardware. So let's just part our hair a little bit to the right, work on that fine Prussian mustache, and let's kick it off. Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Tanker's View with me, your very autistic complaining tanker, Tony. You heard me right, we are finally taking a second run at the Valkyria Chronicles today. I have finally saved up enough big dad energy to finally beat these stupid Gallian teenagers down, riding their tanks on my fucking lawn. No wonder the Imperials are so mad all the goddamn time. I'd be unreasonably mad too if my highly disciplined army got spanked by a bunch of over-enthusiastic, love-struck teenagers. As usual, I'll start off this with popping off with a little bit of history. We're going to show off the tanks and try to divine what's actually going on in this whole shit show. So let's begin with the usual, shall we? A little bit of e-begging. I'm kidding. But as always, thank you for watching. History. I always start with a little bit of history in all my videos, or at least a histrionic diatribe of me just what's setting my jimmies to full rustle this week, all right? So, in the Valkyria Chronicles universe, the Eastern Europan Imperial Alliance is a powerful expansionist political and military entity. It's depicted as highly aggressive, feudal authoritarian state with ambitions to dominate the continent of Europa. The EEIA's stop right there. From this point forward, I'm just going to call them the IA, the Imperials, or the Alliance, because if I have to say EEIA 50 times throughout this video, I might just say screw it and suck star to 45. Anyways, the IA's primary goal is to expand its sphere of influence and resources, which puts it at odds with other nations. Imagine that. Evading other nations gives you a bit of a problem with them. Notably, the Atlantic Federation and the Federation of the Principality of Gallia. Carrying on, the IA is characterized by its militaristic nature, centralized control, and use of advanced technology. It sort of mirrors that of World War I Prussia, the Russians, the Tsarist Russians, Germany to a degree. Well, it borrows a bit of everything from the more militaristic imperial nature of that era. So, they've also got powerful Valkyria units, which give them a significant advantage in combat. Now, gee effing golly, have we ever seen an authoritarian regime with an over-reliance on Wunderwaffe? Anywho, the Empire's expansionist tendencies tend to lead to a series of conflicts all across Europa, reflecting a desire for dominance and control over all of the resources and strategic territories. So, to tie up all those things I said into a nice, neat little bow, in conclusion, the East Europan Imperial Alliance in Valkyria Chronicles draws upon elements of historical regimes in Europe with aggressive, expansionistic ambitions, centralized authoritarian controls, and a perception of advanced military technology that are not only a little bit too few in production, but completely useless to the type of warfare they're being deployed to. So, by examining these similarities, while somehow keeping all the antiquated feudal traditions that are completely antithetical and contradictory to their goals, we can gain an understanding of how the Imperial Alliance's role in the game and its narrative significance, mirroring real-world historical dynamics and how outwardly stupid they are. That's a lot of fancy $10 words to say they took everything they could to cobble together a bunch of mustache-twirling villains. So, there are 6 main production flavors of these tanks used by the IA. They come in light, medium, heavy, assault, ultimate, and destroyer. There are an annoyingly long list of named tanks, which are boss tanks, and they are variations of those 6 tanks plus a few land battleships. For the most part, all the main production tanks share certain similarities, like semicircular standoff applique armor, and more than one turret. They all try to make these Russian, Japanese, and French tanks look German with multiple turrets and a plow, essentially. Now, before you get your body pillows in a twist, I'm going to be looking at this from both an in-universe and a real-world perspective at the same time, because outside of a few minor differences like using ragnaline instead of petrol fuel, it's pretty grounded in reality, mostly. At least in terms of the tank and the technology, to a degree. And I'm still not sold on non-alcoholic teenagers being able to crush a disciplined Prussian-style military, so I really want to dig into this. Let's go. First up, it's going to be that light tank. Yes, this is what happened when my least favorite tank's mom drinks the bong water and a bucket load of bootleg alcohol during pregnancy. You get a deformed T95 Hoggo, complete with an anemic 45mm cannon, poorly placed 85mm mortar. Not only have you eliminated 25% of your tank's arcs of fire, but you've made the mortar barrel so pathetically stubby, you might only be able to burn 1 or 2 charges tops, leaving it with the effective range of pissing headlong into a hurricane. Trust me, it doesn't matter what she told you, this is definitely not average. Might be a great scout, but like a T95, a kick in the shins is going to blow this thing up. 2 bratwursts out of 9 bowls of boiled cabbage. Next. Up next, the medium tank, or the average Joe as we'll call it. Why, you ask? Well, they upgraded that main gun to a blistering 76mm. But they included the same useless anemic mortar from the fetal alcohol light tank, but they added a Flammenwerfer. I'll praise the Flammenwerfer.
Brother, get the flamer. The heavy flamer.
It's an effective weapon that they've actually mounted this tank. Not the best use where they put it, but beggars can't be choosers and all. Oh yeah, they slapped a machine gun turret onto the rear, no clue why. The turret should in theory be able to rotate 360 degrees, negating the need for that, but unless the EEIA's designers are even more fundamentally retarded than I give them credit for, which, given the level of slap on another turret I've seen so far, I might not be too far off the mark. Now, a functioning military command structure would have seen the logistical nightmare that their vaunted armor core was becoming and probably put a big old cap on it. You know, not these guys. Like their mustachioed villains of Europan wars past, common sense, not exactly their forte. This could have been the only tank that they would have needed to produce en masse, and that's a big if. They would actually swap out the main guns and put one of those extra weapons with a better barrel in its place, like, you know, most other competent militaries do. But like mustaches that fell out of favor after 1945, the Imperials weren't exactly well known for their forward-thinking abilities. I award this tank exactly 0 Blitz out of 9 Kriegs. And moving on now to the heavy tank, or what happens when your light tank actually eats its Wheaties. And while I'm at it, do the makers of Valkyria Chronicles know what a mortar is? No, seriously, I'm asking here, because now I'm well aware that my core audience and most people who just stumble upon this video might know what a mortar is or how it works, but just in case you don't, it's typically a man-portable, short-range, high-angle indirect fire weapon. So just up and then down. See how they've got the mortars mounted on these tanks? Straight out. That's going to have a very short range. Now, yes, some vehicles do carry mortars. They don't have to be man-portable, but they're larger versions and they all have the same thing in common. Can you guess again what that is? All the barrels point up. Proud and erect. Looking at the sky, not short and shriveled and drooping down all sad. That's how you get made fun of in the tank barn. Anyways, the light tank that grew up without the benefits of those practical things that would make it useful, like the standoff armor on the tracks. The gun is the same as the medium tank, the motor's the same still pile of shit, and nothing about this tank is at all an increase of its alleged usefulness. This thing gets a fail straight across the board, and I'm just going to straight up award it 0 points. Now, next on this parade of failure is the Imperial Tank Destroyer. This thing's just a plain old Stugger Jagdpanther. Nothing fancy, nothing extra. just as is. Same as the Gallian version, nothing fancy, just a specialized piece of armor with a very limited traverse gun. Not a big deal. So we are coming down to the wire here, folks. We got 2 tanks left to talk about, the Assault and the Ultimate. Because it's getting on later in this video, I might be feeling particularly less impressed than what I've seen so far. I'm going to go ahead and try and keep this brief. Thank you and good night. Remember to like, share it. I'm kidding. All right. So let's actually say something nice about these tanks, maybe. Okay, we're going to start with the Assault tank, I guess. Because I've always been an ass man. Anyways, Assault tank. Now, it's no secret I'm no fan of the T-34. But to do this to it, like, you've turned what arguably could have been a decent, and I'm using that term very loosely, decent tank, you turned it into a joke by making it even more complicated and reducing its military utility to less than useless. Let me spell it out for you, okay? The basis for this tank, is the basis for all medium tanks during World War II, was a mass-producible, fast tank that could be kept up with the infantry and the light vehicles and be fixed in the field by the absolute dumbest of soldiers with a hammer, a wrench, and maybe a screwdriver and a ratchet if they could find it, and enough bad bootleg vodka. Now, tanks aren't exactly roomy. And now so inside not only have to carry the main gun ammunition, but all the extra machine gun ammunition, now you got to carry these mortar shells that have a range of about 3.5 feet because the barrel's not long enough. A main gun that probably wouldn't be able to go hull down because of where you've placed the outlets for your useless mortar and the heavy machine gun at the apex of your glacis plate, and rounding out this absolute parade of sheer fucking hubris is gonna be the Ultimate tank. Well, it's just an IS-2 heavy, it's literally just an IS-2 heavy, an exact copy, like right down to the muzzle brake on this bitch. How fitting that the only tank that actually would have worked as an effective tank in the field, aside from the, like, as designed, is this one, and it was never actually deployed during the war. Ain't that a bitch? Like, this tank outside of the Edelweiss, which would have been perfect for its time. Simplified logistics, minimal crews, simplified rule, and decent sloping armor. Just perfect for what they needed at the time. But no, you went with a mass-produced pile of multi-turreted trash that couldn't do anything effectively.
Good job.
Now, there's a bunch of, like I said, single vehicles, or boss vehicles if you want to call them that, and they go from don't drink the bong water to smoking that deep Floridian trailer park meth. Let's just do a quick parade and see how wasteful and stupid they were. I'll give you guys a second. Don't worry. Go ahead. Yeah. Have it long enough? Right on. So, in conclusion with all of this, if this was the best we could expect of the big brain leadership of the IA, no wonder they got this shit pushed in by a bunch of high schoolers. There's absolutely nothing about the bulk of the IA tank fleet to write home about here. They're all a bunch of I can't even call them Wonder Waffa. All right, this is just the toddler's adage of war. More is better, or something like that. Just because it looks fancier, has more guns, doesn't mean it's always going to work better. And a lot of times it's more of a hindrance than an asset. Think about the French Char C2, and more appropriately, the Soviet T-35. In theory, could be decent. In practice, an absolute nightmare and ineffective in every capacity, anywhere or at any time. All right? Sometimes simple is better. It works. So that's going to be all from me this time around. If you enjoyed this content, please do like, share, and subscribe. I really would appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. You are all absolute legends. I will see you next time when I'm probably kicking Star Wars in the teeth again. Love you. Peace. Goodbye.